The commission resumes. The last segment song.
The commission resumes. Major General, you're still under oath?
Correct, Chairperson.
The reason we are late is that we had a visit in chambers from Counsel for the Police Services who wishes to say something which doesn't amount to an objection. Yes, Mr. Ndulwana.
Thank you, Chair. Let me emphasize again that this is not an objection. It's just an observation of concern that the police team is considered over the lunch break. The concern is that, and I'm dealing only with the witness. This issue relates to the witness who is currently in cross-examination. The concern that the police team has discussed is where the evidence leaders place the version of the minors or the injured workers who are not currently represented here without having consulted with them. And of course, in light of what Mr. Mpofu has said this morning, that has also brought this to a head. It made us think a bit. And so we consider that if this were to happen and Mr. Mpofu comes back, it seems to us that very little could stop him from saying, well, look, I am now here, I've consulted with my witnesses, I want to cross-examine General Mpembe on my witnesses' version as they've conveyed it to me. The evidence leaders could not possibly have articulated fairly the version of my witnesses. We've considered that there may be a way around this problem, and it's one of two ways, there may be more. Either the evidence leaders, before they put a version of unrepresented people to the Major General, they could have a consultation with the minors who are not here represented, either voluntarily, in other words, of the volition, free volition of the minors, or by way of subpoena. And let me make it clear, Chair, that I am not talking about versions that are contained in statements being put to the General. I am talking about general versions attributed to people who are not represented here, and that being said to be their version. So we fear that it may very well be argued at the end by Mr. Mpofu and his team, and perhaps Mr. Nsebeza, that the process has been irregular, and that may very well be a ground for review. We just thought we should place that on record without any objection at all, so that we are all alive to this possibility.
Thank you, Mr. Ndulwana. Mr. Badlinda, as the chief evidence leader, do you wish to comment at all upon what's been said?
Chair, we understand the problem that is raised by our colleagues. It seems to us that the way to resolve it is as follows, that where a witness gives evidence and we have on record a version by the injured and arrested persons put by them themselves, either in the form of a statement which they've submitted or in the form of a proposition or a case which has been put by their counsel, then we will say, according to the statement of Mr. So-and-so, he says this, and say to the witness, what do you say to that? Or alternatively, according to what was said by counsel for the injured arrested persons, their case is this, what do you say to that? That putting of a version will carry no evidential weight whatsoever. It will give the witness an opportunity to deal with it so that the witness doesn't have to be called back subsequently. And if the injured and arrested persons subsequently come back and say, well, that's not really what we meant when we said this, that's not what we meant something else, well, they can do with that and they can be dealt with in due course. But it seems to us that it's both fair to the witnesses and important for the work of the Commission that where we have a version on record from the injured and arrested persons, a version created by them themselves, it's important that should be put to the witnesses.
Thank you. That seems to me, prima facie, to be correct. Sorry? Mr. Mluwane, do you want to comment?
I'll just say something briefly by way of reply. The difficulty, of course, may not be a difficulty with the injured minors, but the difficulty will be that the Major General Mpembe may very well have to be recalled in the event of the injured minors amending the version that was put to Major General Mpembe. And that, we think, will be an unfair approach to take.
Shouldn't we cross that bridge even when we get there? It may not happen. It would affect weights. I understand the point you make about it might be contended it's an irregularity. Whether that's ever likely to be upheld by a court that applies its mind properly to the question is another matter, which you don't have to go into at the moment. But thank you for making the point and for giving us cause to think about it. I think I've already reminded you you're under oath, Major General. Ms. Pillay?
Thank you, Chair. General, during the cross-examination of General Pierre, Mr. Mpofu...
Sorry, Ms. Pillay, are you moving away from the extract?
Yes, I am.
I can't remember. Did you put lines 24 and 25 to him? I can't remember if you did read it out or not.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
General, during the cross-examination of General Pierre, Mr. Mpofu dealt with what he described as 10 prescripts, legal prescripts, which were extracted from the legal framework, the various legal documents that bind SABC and regulates their conduct. Now, General Pierre agreed with all 10 of them, and so I think they're largely uncontentious. The one that I want to deal with you today specifically is what was described by Mr. Mpofu as the legal and moral duty on the part of SABC to act in an impartial and unbiased manner. Now, General Pierre accepted that such a duty exists. Do you similarly accept that SABC has to act, when they do act, they have to act in an impartial and unbiased manner?
Njengoba xa wayebuzwa uGeneral Pierre uba umsebenzi wamapolisa xa esebenzayo kufuneka asebenze ngokuzithoba nokungathathi icala, ingaba uGeneral uyavumelana naloo nto uGeneral ewe kunjalo?
Now, General, Mr. Mpofu argued before the Commission that in relation to the Marikana operation, that SABC did not act in an unbiased and impartial manner. In fact, he alleged that there was what he called a toxic collusion between SABC and Lonmin. And he put to both General Annandale and General Pierre 13 indications of what factual indications of what he submitted amounted to a toxic, collusive relationship between SABC and Lonmin.
Ngokuya ngokomnumzana Mpofu xa wayebuza ubaveza uba amapolisa akazange asebenze ngendlela efaneleyo ayithatha icala kuba ayaqubula kunye nabakwalonmin, ingaba kunjalo General?
Chair, what I've done just to go quite quickly through these points is I've just tabulated them in a table and cross-referenced to where they appear in the record, and I just seek to go quite quickly through them, General, and get your response.
I suggest you read all 13 without interruption, just to get them on record, as it were, and then the witness can deal with them either one by one or globally as he considers appropriate or you consider appropriate. Shall we give it an exhibit number?
Chair, before we give it an exhibit number, it's not an objection. I'm just alerting us to the fact. I'm wondering if this is necessary, because I remember distinctly Mr. Berger dealing with each and every one of these, and quite ably with respect. And it seems the effect of that was really to torpedo each and every one of these out of the water. So I wonder if it's necessary for this witness to deal with it.
Lonman don't agree there was collusion. Perhaps it's appropriate to get a police comment as well. But let's not just spend too much time on it, but rather get it. The next exhibit, as far as I can see, will be Triple H 49. But you'll bear in mind the point that was made by Mr. Ngudulwana, not by way of objection. Carry on, please.
The 13 points, General, are firstly the appointment of Mr. Sinclair as the liaison person to manage the relationship between SABC and Lonman. The second point is the partnership between SABC and Lonman in identifying individuals who are suspects. The third is the establishment and use of the Lonman jock. Essentially, that relates to the fact that the jock was based on Lonman's premises. The fourth was the joint use of the CCTV material by Lonman and SABC. The fifth was the joint deployment of medical personnel at Forward Holding Area 1. The sixth was the fact that Mr. Boertes was permanently based at the SABC jock. The seventh was the use of the Coin security helicopter, which is referred to in certain documents as the Lonman chopper. The eighth was the use of the Lonman employee George as the Fanagolo interpreter. The ninth was the fact that Mr. Kwadi was with the union representatives, the union presidents, when they were taken to the Kopi on the 15th. The 10th was the miners who were arrested on the 16th were processed at the Lonman number 1 shaft. The 11th is the fact that Mr. Boertes attended the 6 a.m. jock on the 16th of August. The 12th is that there were daily briefing meetings between Lonman and NUM, and that SABC would occasionally attend the daily briefings. And the 13th is that when the people were shot, the overall commander, that is yourself, was in the Lonman chopper and not in the jock at the time.
Amanqaku lawa bekayo ngokulandelana kwawo kuba abamapolisa ayadibana nabakwa-Lone Mill ukwenza amacebo wabo. Elokuqala uba ijoke yayibanjelwa e-Lone Mill, babesebenzisa i-CCTV yase-Lone Mill, kwaye kwakubekwe endaweni ekufutshane nase-Lone Mill, Forward Holding Area 1. Umnumzana Boertes wayekhona kwijoke, kwakusetyenziswa i-Coin helicopter eyayikwase-Lone Mill, kwakusebenziswa umtoliki wefanakalo wase-Lone Mill onguGeorge. Umnumzana uKhwadi naye wayekwangokwase-Lone Mill. Ababanjiweyo babeye basetyenzelwa kwakhona phaa e-Lone Mill. Mr. Boertes wayekhona kwi-jock ngo-6 ekuseni. Kwakukhona kuthethathethwano i-briefing yayibakhona qho ibakhona i-Lone Mill naNUM kunye namapolisa. Ingaba general uyavumelana nalona?
No, Chairperson.
General akavumelana nazo.
What, General, I could ask you, if I could ask you to respond firstly to the general allegation that there was some sort of improper relationship between SABC and Lonman during the operation. If I could have your comment to that.
Ungaqala uchaze general xa kuthiwa kwakukhona okuvana okuthile okungaqhelekanga phakathi kwamapolisa kunye nabaya kwa-Lone Mill.
No, Chairperson. There was no toxic relationship between SABC and Lonman.
Uyalawo general ukongekho mvisiswano ethile phakathi kwamapolisa nabakwa-Lone Mill.
I can deal with each item if the Commission does allow me to do that.
Ndingakwazi ukuziphendula nganye nganye uba ndiyavumeleka ukwenza lona.
You can go ahead, General, and deal with whichever points you feel it's necessary to deal with.
Appointment of Mr. Sinclair as liaison officer as liaison person to manage relationship between SABC and Lonman. Mr. Sinclair, in terms of his work, he is a most senior officer of the security in Lonman. And he's not appointed by us. So it is by virtue of his work that he worked with South African Police Service.
Umnumzana uSentling ngomkhulu kuma security asebenzela eLone Mill. ngokomsebenzi wakhe njenge-security elikhulu kwalon mill uyavumeleka uba angasebenza namapolisa.
Chairperson, number 2 recalls me of what I said in terms of on the 13th where people were identified. Lonmin was the employer. And for us to know who were the people, we had no any other place to go except to go to Lonmin. And secondly, the Commission will recall that I said when the Provincial Commissioner was briefed on Monday, the senior officers of Lonmin said, we don't know who are these people, they are faceless. So then that's why then we had to go there. It was not a partnership. To us, to establish that there is a partnership, there should have been a memorandum of understanding whereby we do share resources or any other issue. But this is any other department where we can and where we can help. But in this case, Lonmin were the employer where we could get more information in order to enable us to do our work.
Abakalonmin njengamqashi oqashe abo baqhankqalazi babo kuphela ababenokwazi ukwazi uba ngobani na aba njengoba babetshilo xa kwakubuza umcommissioner ophondo bathe bebengazi uba kwakungobani ngabo kuphela babenokwazi uba bangobani abantu.
Chairperson, with regard to number 3, there is no policy that says you cannot establish a jock to any other place. Secondly, is that we normally, in any operation, we normally establish a jock where we will be nearer to the problem than any other. The issue there that we look at is efficiency, effectiveness, that the triple E, economical efficiency and effectiveness. Rather than to be away from the place to travel from more of the place where we were not, because we were supposed to deploy throughout the day and the night, and you have to work to know all the places within a short space of time. We were getting different police officials from different provinces that they had to be on a continuous basis be orientated.
Ngokuya ngokubika kwethu ijog elonmin awukho umthetho walayo uba singayibeka naphi na ngokomthetho kufuneka xa sibeka ijog ibe kufutshane nendawo ezosebenza kuyo ifikeleleke kwaye ingabi indawo ezochitha imali yokuba sisihla sisenyuka siyapho kwaye befika amaqela amaninzi avela kwindawo ngendawo ezehlukeneyo kwakuyona ndawo ilungeleyo uba bazokwazi ukwazi indawo bazosebenzela kuyo ngokukhawuleza.
Chairperson, with regard to number 4, the CCTV, it was an asset for us to enable us to do the work. We did not utilize it because there was any other agreement between us and Lonmin. There was no even a prior arrangement or prior. It was an asset that is there that we could utilize it to do our work properly.
Ngokusebenza kwethu i-CCTV yase-Lonmin kwakuyiyo into esinakuyisebenzisa eyayikhona ngekuba kunesivumelano esithile esasivumelene ngazo into esafika ikhona sakwazi ukuyisebenzisa ukuba isebenziseke.
With regard to number 5, the medical personnel of Lonmin, we couldn't see any reason why we could not utilize it because in most cases it was in the case of emergency. What happened on the 13th, and then with regard to on the 16th, we didn't. There was no any other prior arrangements in terms of saying we have to plan together so that we should get you to go there. So that to me, it didn't show any other toxic relationship.
Ukusebenzisa kwethu aboncedo lokuqala baselonmin ngaba babekhona bekufutshane kwangekho sivumelano sithile sasisebenzisile.
Chairperson, with regard to number 6, Mr. Buotas is the second in command of Mr. Sinclair. He knew the environment very well. And in this case, for us to have operated in a better way, one of the areas that we need to master well, it is the milieu, that the environment in which we have to work. So, in regard to that, that's why Mr. Botas was in the joke. But I need to indicate, Chairperson, with regard to the joke, and that can also be confirmed. And I did state that our joke was established on Saturday. It worked on Saturday, and at that time, Mr. Botas was there and the police were there. And when I arrived on Monday, the joke was separated. So Lonmin joke was at another place and SAB's joke was on another place. So it was on the issue of, it's not that he was always there when we were doing the briefing. When we were doing the briefing, it was only the police. And then Mr. Botas will come at a later stage and the briefing could be done for the operation to continue on a highly classified manner.
Ngokuya ngokwamnumzana Botes ke okwawulisekela likaMnumzana Mnsaidi kuye owayikhona owayisazi indawo kwaye ekwamini kwexesha kwakubabele benejoke yabo yaseLonmead namapolisa abenejoke yabo wayethi ke emveni koko abe khona ebengakho ngawo onke amaxesha xa kusenziwa i-debriefing pha ebeyabe khona xa sekugqibile amapolisa then badibane benze iyabo i-debriefing.
Chairperson, with regard to number 7, use of coin security helicopter, I need also to state that there was no prior arrangements with SABS that the coin security should be used by SABS. Coin is contracted by loanmen. So we saw it as a tool that you can utilize it in that regard. It was not because loanmen, there was any other prior arrangements between us and loanmen. And in all of my testimony, exactly what was said by loanmen, exactly what was said, I said it without any fear to show that there was no any other relationship. We have just to talk what has happened on that day.
Ukuya ngokusebenzisa ihelicopter ekhona eyayifakwe ngokwecontractor eLonmin kwakusisixhobo nje esasikhona esinasinosebenzisa sasingasetshenziswa kuba kunesivumelano sithile.
Chairperson, with regard to number 8, the situation at that time needed any resource to use. And as I've indicated earlier on, that if we knew of the skills of Reverend Walker, we could have used him. And in this case, the only people that could assist us with the Fanaga law, because we didn't have any expert in the police to talk Fanaga law, it was to use one of the loanmen people. As I indicated that we didn't get those services on Monday, but on the following day we did get those services from loanmen.
Wasn't there some evidence that Lieutenant Colonel McIntosh also can speak Fanaga law? Or am I confusing that with something else? I seem to remember some evidence to that effect. Am I right?
Chairperson, what I know is that he did do a conflict resolution in the mines, but that he is very good in Fanaga law, I do not know.
Ukuya ke ngokusetshenziswa kwetolika itolika iFanaga law kwakungekho umuntu ongomnye ngaphandle kwaye owaye nokutolika lona uba ngaba sasazile ngolwazi luka Reverend Walker ngeba sasebenzisena kodwa ngelo xesha kwakungekho omnye osasinolwazi ngayo nokuba umnumzana McIntosh unolwazi sasingayazi akuba unokwazi na ukutolika iFanaga law.
Chairperson, with regard to number 9, Mr. Khwadi, it is his work in Loanmen to be a labor relation officer. As I have indicated that what happened in Loanmen was labor related, and the police intervened when people started to be killed, vehicles started to be touched. We did request Loanmen, and Loanmen tasked Mr. Khwadi because he had a good relationship with the presidents already. He's the one that facilitated the meeting that took place on the 15th. So we did not see any toxic relationship. He was there to assist in the meeting that was organized, and it was organized by him, but called by us. And also to go to the mine. It was to assist, but not to have any other toxic relationship.
Ukusebenza kwethu umnumzana uKhwadi. Umnumzana uKhwadi nguye osebenza ngengxaki zabasebenzi kwaphaya elonmini. Kwaye ne-meeting esayibamba ngomhla we-15 ikwanguye owayigqugquzela lo meeting. Yayibizwe sithi kodwa nguye owenza uba ayihlanganise ibe khona.
Chairperson, with regard to number 10, I did testify that the police station at that time was not did not have electricity, and there were problems that we could have experienced, and with the number and the volume of the people that we could have processed. And then what we had to do is to get another place in terms of to process this. It was not arranged prior. It was when we said it was arranged prior, yes, in the sense that when we realized that the police station, there is no electricity because it was under construction, then we had to get a place where we could process.
When exactly
was it? What time was that you made that arrangement with London that they would make that place available for the processing of the arrested persons? Can you remember?
Chairperson, my recollection serves me well. It was on the 16th, by the time when we were doing the taskings in the morning.
In the morning?
And I do remember that Brigadier Fansel Sibuluki and myself, we were responsible for that one.
Umntu osebenza ngokusetha elo tyala elo umnumzana uFanzile azange amvezele olulwazi.
General, just the final point that I intend to deal with in my cross-examination is to draw to your attention that when Mr. Mpofu was cross-examining General Annandale, he described 7 indications of the fact that the operation was hijacked, in his terms, by hawks who were more militant members of SABC from what he called the doves, and you were, in this analysis, you were cast as a dove. Now, the proposition put was that the hawks, the more militant members of SABC, were really General Annandale, Lieutenant Colonel Scott. On the other hand, you represented the doves, and the proposition put by Mr. Mpofu was that you were sidelined, deliberately sidelined during the operation by the hawks. And he referred to a number of factors which he submitted demonstrated the fact that you were sidelined.
Umnumzana Mpofu uthe xa ebuza phaya kumnumzana Annandale waveza indaba uba kukhona amaqela amabini iHawks neDoves, wena uwela kweli cala lamaDoves kwaye wawubekelwe ecaleni ngamaHawks kwaye unezizathu azibekayo ezisixhenxe.
Now, there are 5 such factors, General, and I'd just like to briefly put them to you and just to record your response. The first is the first factor is the statements by Mr. Matunjwa that you informed him that you were not in charge of the operation.
Uqala si-statement samnumzana uMathunjwa athi yena umazisile uba ayinguwe ophetheyo kule nto yayisenzeka.
General, can I have your response to that?
Ndingeva impendulo kuwe, General.
Chairperson, in terms of my statement H3, I did deny that I did not tell Mr. Matunjwa that I'm no more in charge of the operation. And when I introduced him to the provincial commissioner, I said it's a provincial commissioner of the province. And I don't see any reason why I could have lied to Mr. Matunjwa.
Kwimpendulo yam phaa kwi-statement H3 ndatsho uba ndayiphika loo nto azange nditsho kuMr. Mathunjwa uba ayindima ophetheyo. Naxa ndandimazisa kumkomishina wophondo ndamazisa uba ngumkomishina wophondo lo, andazi ke noba ndandingaphathanga ivela kanjani.
Chairperson, maybe I may explain with this proposition what is meant by the dove and the hawk.
General, the Hawks are the more militant members who adopted a more militant approach, and the Doves are the peacemakers, those that adopted a more passive approach.
Xa kuchazwa ke ama-Hawks kuthiwa ngabo ke bazimisele okanye baza ngohlobo lokulwa, ama-Doves ngabo baza ngohlobo loxolelwaniso.
The second factor, General, which was advanced as an indication of the fact that you were sidelined, is your statement in Triple G 12, paragraph 51, that you could only give guidance if it was sought, and that on the day guidance was not sought.
Enye into ebonisa ke general uba ngabo wawubekele icaleni ipha kwi-statement sakho singu Triple G 12 apho wena uchaza uba wawunonika nje ingcebiso uba ngaba ingcebiso iyafuneka ngale xesha akho ingcebiso iyafunekayo.
Chairperson, I did respond in terms of my Triple H3. If I heard the question correctly, in terms of paragraph 28, page 11, to say that I should add to say that on my original statement that as an overall commander, I'm the sunboard to the operational commander and the joke when problems arise and they inform me through the radio or cell phone of those problems and seek my guidance. This did not happen. It is not the function of the overall commander to accept the functions of the operational commander, particularly when the operational commander is better positioned as being on the ground and experience action, first action. But that it doesn't mean that I was sidelined.
General, the third factor was the fact that death threats were made against you on the 13th of August, and that Colonel Vermaak proposed to remove you from the scene of the 13th.
Inqaku lesithathele uba wawuyawurhogrhisa ngokuthathelwa ubomi wakho kwaye uKolonel Vermaak wakususa kule ndawo esiyeleku.
Chairperson, as I said, I didn't see anyone who threatened me. Maybe is he coming from the Hawk or from the Dove? So it will be very difficult for me. Maybe I may say this, whereas it was actually coming from the Dove where I was falling. So if I knew who were the one that threatened me, I might be in a position, because as I said, I was also told when I was in Poch that the people who actually threatened me, it was Captain Tupe and Mirafe, so I don't know whether they are classified as Doves or as Hawks. But that I was also told, and I did not see them doing that.
Mhlala ngaphambi nje manandithile uba ndandingazi uba ngubani nalo urhogrhisa ngokuthatha ubomi bam mhlawumbi ukweliqela ndandivela kulo le-Doves okanye le-Hawks kwaye nje mandiphinde ndatsho uba ndandixelelwa phaa ePotchefstroom ukuba kwakunguMnumzana uTupe noMnumzana Mirafe andibazi ukuba bawela kweliphi icala.
The fourth factor, General, is the fact that at the JOCOM, which took place at 1:30 on the 16th, General Mbombo gave the instruction to General Annandale and not to you to execute stage 3 of the operational plan.
Inqaku lesine ke General kulapha kwi-JOC ngomhla we-16 August phaa kwicala emva kwentsimbi yokuqala apho uLieutenant General Mbombo anikele umyalezo Major General Annandale wangawuniki wena.
Do you agree, General, that this is evidence of you being sidelined during the operation?
Uyavuma General baba ubungqina uba wawubekwe ecaleni kule nto eyenzekalayo?
No, Chairperson, what I would, in my response, I did respond in terms of my original statement, paragraph 12, Triple G 12, I'm sorry, and also on my Triple H3. Major General Annandale, since from his arrival on the 13th, he has been always in the JOC. And he was a JOC commander. He was chairing most of the meetings, and I explained why I did choose him to be a JOC commander. And in my absence, he will also assume my responsibilities. So in the South African Police, we don't see ourselves as Hawks or as Doves. We work as as a team and as officers. But if there was any other thing that I would not have agreed, I would have stated.
Njengoba ndanditshilo kwi-statement sami singu-triple G12 no-triple H3 uba umnumzana Anadil wayeloko ekhona phaa kwijogo ngalonke ixesha ngoba emaxesha xa ndingekho ibe nguye otsala intambo kwaye thina njengamapolisa asiboni sehlukahlukene kukhona ama-hawks nama-staff siyasebenzisana njengama-officer.
I'm not sure it's as simple as that. If you look at slide 67 of Exhibit L, you will see we get the designated command positions. You've got that? Slide 67, Exhibit L.
Xa singabheka phaa ku-slide 67 ku-exhibit L siyabona ukuthi kuba khona ikomanda ebekiweyo.
Now your role, you were the commander of the JOC, and your role was overall command of the operation.
Wayikomanda phaa kwijog kwaye wayikomanda yawo wonke umsebenzi wenziwayo.
General Annandale was your chief of staff, and his role was to coordinate the running of the operation by managing the JOC with the designated role players representing each field. And he explained also, and you've said that is so too, that he was to be the chair. He was to chair the meetings of the JOCOM. But inasmuch as you are described as the person in overall command, and his role was simply to coordinate the running the operation by managing the JOC and chairing the JOC, I would have not expected him to have been instructed to implement stage 3. Surely the person to implement stage 3 would have been the person in overall command, namely yourself, or possibly the operational commander, Brigadier Collitz, who was going to coordinate the operation on the ground. But somehow we find Major General Annandale being instructed by the Provincial Commissioner to implement stage 3. That doesn't quite make sense to me, I must tell you, but I'll be interested to hear your comment on it.
Njengoba sisiva ke General uba uGeneral Anadil wayengaphansi kwakho kwaye inguye owayesenza ukunxibelelaniso lo maqela wayelapho kwaye nguye oye abe ngumhlali ngaphambili xa kudityene phaa kwijob kwaye ngokulindela kwethu kwakungaba kunikwa komanda ongamele konke nguye owayenika owayekufana uba unikwa umyalezo uba aye ku-stage 3.
Chairperson, notwithstanding what the Provincial Commissioner might also say, because the instruction came from her, but my understanding at the time, it was that because Major General Edendale was oftenly, and he was the one that was normally chairing the meetings and of the JOC.
A question we should ask her why she did what she did. You can merely speculate really as to what she had in mind. Yeah. So, sorry, Ms. Pillai, I interrupted you. Please forgive me.
Chair, just the final factor, General, which was advanced as a further indication that she was sidelined during the operation, is the absence of specific mention in the minute of the crucial meeting, that's the 1:30 JOCOM on the 16th. There was an absence of specific mention of input from you in the minute.
Elinye inqaku ke General ngelokuthi kula mhlangano wangecala emva kwetsimbi yokuqala akho nawo ibakanya uba kukhona umgalelo walifakayo xa uhlangene kula nhlangano.
Chairperson, when there were some inputs that I did make on the 16th, and inputs like the resources that they has to be utilized. For example, if I have to give an example, the taskings that were given to Brigadier Sibuluki, Brigadier Fonsail, and as a result that Major General Annandale was coming from head office. Some of the issues in terms of how they should be done in which police stations, they were done by me, but they did not appear in the minutes. My understanding was that for the fact that they did not appear in the minutes, they seem not to be the decisions, because I do understand that in the minutes in most of the times the decisions are what been recorded, but not everything that was said in the meeting. But as I'm saying, Major General Ellendale came from head office. Surely he could not have known anything that could have been happening in the province. So I was there to also to play that role.
Ndingatsho ndithi kunaligalelo naligalelayo kula nhlangu wange-16 kufana noba imisebenzi yayizonikwa umnumzana uSiboloki nomnumzana uFanzile nezinto ezazosetshenziswa. Enye into futhi umnumzana Allendale wayesuka yena e-head office wayengayazi into enzekayo apha ephondweni njengoba ndandikhona mna njengenhloko yophonda. Kwaye into ebhaliweyo ekuthiwa zii-minutes mhlawumbi kuye kwenzeka ungabhalwa yonke into ethethwayo kuye kubhalwe mhlawumbi ezo ziba yintloko.
Chair, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Who wishes to cross-examine the witness? No. Mr. Luwana, you did indicate to me, I think.
Chair, if I may just...
Sorry, a big one.
If I may just ask for a 30-second indulgence, one of my colleagues just wants to draw something to my attention. General, there's just one further proposition that I need to put to you. And the proposition is the following.
If he comes and testifies, give him a chance to
And I preface the proposition with the following, that we as yet do not have a statement from the witness, who is Brigadier Siboloki. But if he testifies the following, and I'd just like to hear your comment if the Brigadier does come to this commission and testifies.
If the question is going to start like that, I'm already objecting, Chair. She must rephrase it.
All we want to do, Chair, is give the witness the benefit of commenting on this evidence, which we believe will be placed before the commission in due course.
The Brigadier.
From the Brigadier, that's correct.
Well, Mr. Ngluwana, you know, I understand where you are coming from, that there should have been a statement filed and he should have had notice of it so he could deal with it. I understand that. On the other hand, if we are going to say the question can't be put because there wasn't a statement, they will then get and they then get the statement. And it's material. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but the question is going to be. Then we'd have to get, and if it's important to get the witness's response to it, then we have to get him back. So isn't it practical and convenient for the question to be put, and he can say, well, I either say I can't answer it, I don't know, or answer it, or not, as the case may be. It may be he'll give an answer that's so decisive of the matter that the point will be dead from now on. Isn't it practical to do it that way? Or do you want to be impractical? You must tell me.
My objection is not about the absence of a statement. It's the uncertainty about whether or not he's going to come and testify, if so-and-so is going to come and testify.
I get the impression, I may be wrong, that the evidence leaders have interviewed him and he's told them something, and they are fairly confident that he's going to come and say that.
Then why don't they put the question when he's done so, Chair?
Well, then we have to get the witness back. That's the point.
Mr. Chairperson, I wonder if I could add something to this debate. We sit with a real difficulty as evidence leaders in this respect. In order to cooperate with SAPS, we have hitherto interviewed their witnesses in their presence and haven't insisted that the witnesses sign statements immediately. We have sent notes back to SABC with draft statements. In some cases, those draft statements have waited for months on end and still haven't come back. If the ruling is going to be that we cannot put what SABC witnesses say to us in consultations unless we have a statement, then we'll have to reconsider our relationship with SABC in this regard and insist that witnesses who consult with us sign statements immediately.
Well, Chair, with respect, maybe they should, because we've had witness statements prepared by the evidence leaders which the witness themselves are not prepared to sign. So, I mean, this suggestion that we should agree to an arrangement where the evidence leaders interview or consult with witnesses whom they are going to cross-examine and then present a witness statement to that witness to sign is ridiculous with respect. But that doesn't deal with the issue that we are concerned with here. Here, there is no clarity about whether or not the evidence or the version, the witness whose version is sought to be put here is going to come and testify.
Well, I'm reluctant to deal with the matter now by way of a ruling one way or the other, because it seems to me that it may well have important implications for our way forward. What is suggested by Mr. Traskinson is that if necessary, the evidence leaders, when they interview members of the police, in the presence of legal representatives of the police, that's the important point, may well then insist that the statement be signed. Obviously, the witness isn't happy to sign the statement that's proffered to him, he can change it. But that will alter the whole way of working. I prefer to leave it open for the moment for discussions perhaps with the legal representatives of the police, Mr. Semenya and Mr. Budland and others. And then, so at the moment, if we have to have this witness coming back, if the brigadier gives the evidence that the evidence leaders think he'll give on this particular issue, then so be it. We'd have wasted a bit of time, but there's nothing we can do about it. So the matter can stand over, and if need be, the witness can be recalled on this point. That's the end of your questioning, Ms. Pillay?
That is it.
Mr. Inglewan, I understand you need time to prepare for re-examination, so I suggest we take the adjournment now and start again at 9 tomorrow.
Not so much to prepare for it, Chair, just to streamline my questions.
See, I meant prepare. I meant that. Obviously, you've got a lot of material to work through. You like to coordinate it and put some pieces in the waste paper basket and others at the top of the pile. But that's can be quite a lengthy process. It will streamline the resultant re-examination. That's what you want to do.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
9 tomorrow be good enough?
That's perfect, Chair. Just one housekeeping matter which is being brought to my attention. It appears the statement of Mr. Kellerman, I don't recall it having been entered as an exhibit. Perhaps I'm wrong.
Chair, I think it's Triple H 52.
I think it was referred to as Exhibit H, Triple H 52, but I didn't mark it, and I hasten to remedy that omission, and I've now done.
No, Chair, thank you.
We will adjourn now until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Ngomso ngentsimbi yethoba kusasa.